I think we can start with like, if you can just introduce yourself and like introduce like your organization a little bit, like very briefly, so we can kind of, anyone who doesn't know who you are.
Sure. So yeah, my name's Will. I'm 29 and I'm a co-founder of Movement Skateboarding. Yeah, we work with young people here in Athens, in Greece, sort of promoting empowerment, well-being, and social cohesion through skateboarding. A lot of the young people we've worked with, sort of since opening this project, have been refugees and displaced people. Very quickly and sort of increasingly with time, it's become apparent that there's just a lot of diverse needs within young people in Athens. So like we sort of took that explicit focus away from young refugees, and it's just kind of all young people in Athens. So working with also a lot of kind of like Roma traveller young people, also working with like sort of young LGBTQ plus people. Certainly a great focus on women and girls, and just like anyone who can benefit from all of the wonderful positive things that skateboarding gave me. I like to try and share with other people. It's what it's all about. And we do it from we got a mobile skate park which fits in the back of our van, sort of like Russian dolls, kind of like fits together. We drive between different, I guess it's like different communities where there's need for it. So that might be, originally a lot of that was in refugee camps. Now it's kind of more based around the city, and sort of different, like just kind of different public parks and basketball courts. Sometimes we go to skate parks. We have a lot of like partner organizations like community centers, or like sometimes working with squats where a lot of like young refugees have been living as well. And all that nice stuff. That's
awesome. We talk a lot about like just all those positive impacts, right, that skating brings to everybody. But I'm curious to know more about how you guys were noticing like the ways that these kids were really specifically being impacted. Like, was there any particular stories or things that you noticed, like certain kids that you were like, wow, they really struggled at first and then they really got into it later on, you know, or like, how was that development, you think? Like, do you think it's gotten easier for them, or do you think every new kid is like, it's a whole starting all the way from scratch?
I don't know. So I guess like there's a lot of different experiences for kids learning to skate. I'd say, maybe like kids who have been through a lot of difficult stuff in their life have like maybe got that resilience. They've already had to learn resilience in a million other ways growing up. They've had to learn how to, say perhaps young refugees who maybe have had to go through, difficult and traumatic experiences and had to leave their country, and then, had more of that, making dangerous journeys across the Mediterranean Ocean, sea, and then like living in horrible refugee camps and various other horrible experiences. Like, they've had to learn a sense of resilience and keep pushing. And I think those kids, when they like skate, are quite just persistent and just want to keep going at it, which is like a really impressive thing to see. I think they're also the kids that like maybe can benefit the most from like a kind of focused, mindful exercise that is also quite like adrenaline-y. It's like an interesting combination of focused, nice stuff, calming brain, whilst also being adrenaline-y and like intense. Is that what you meant? I didn't really know to answer your question. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like it's okay. I was just curious. Like, I think you did answer my question. It's just curious to think about like trauma affects so many people in so many different ways, right? And at the end of the day, it manifests itself very differently. I was curious to know that idea of if there's like some kids who it's like, they're like super in it because of that, but then because of the trauma, also other kids will be like much more reserved, I think that's like something that a lot of people don't actually think about. Like, I think we think trauma looks one way, right?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the answer I gave an answer that will work for some, and like, as you say, there's others that are a lot more yeah, you know, maybe a lot more reserved, a lot less comfortable getting involved in these things. Their sort of main response to the trauma and stuff that they live through is to sort of shut off. And to work with those young people, you need to be, you know, getting down on their level and having very empathetic and slow and encouraging conversations, and yeah, trying to get them involved that way. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it affects different kids in different ways.
Do you feel like, how do you feel working with these kids has affected you personally and mentally?
I mean, yeah, there were like, so I would say at the time that we worked very regularly in camps, it was like, yeah, working, or we were doing like 6 sessions a week in refugee camps. I found that like quite mentally tough, because like to try and run quality, like quality youth sessions of just any kind is really, really hard. They're not spaces that are designed for like, you know, like nice empowering youth things to happen. They're spaces that are designed to like cram in as many people as possible and keep them out of the eyes of the majority of Greek society. You know, and to be used as a sort of holding pen for the rest of the European Union, so that like people like to kind of disincentivize any like further migration to the rest of the continent. So they're not nice places, and I would say consciously by design, they're quite they're very understimulating, very like, yeah, like I don't know, like just lots of like grey walls. Like they're very far out of the city usually, so these kids have like not necessarily had a great amount of exposure to just like any other services. They might have some limited education stuff, but like they probably aren't that used to, like they haven't had that much other stuff happening during their week, so they're understimulated and they're like quite bored, and you might be like a real big event for them.
Yeah.
You kind of combine that with like the sort of trauma that they've been through, their behavior, the sort of behavioral things that you will witness can be like really quite extreme. Like yeah, like potentially like some young people being like pretty violent and kind of pretty aggressive, and you've got to like deal with that challenging behavior. Also like the kind of the sort of shutdown and kind of like closing yourself off sort of behavior that other kids might express. You also need to try and, whilst dealing with everything else happening in that space, try and give that child that time to encourage them, and that might not always be that easy. Yeah, and like I don't know, yeah, just like also thinking about the kind of space that it is. Like we witnessed the space that we had in one of those camps like go from 5 years ago being quite large, like the size of like a couple of tennis courts and like a smooth wooden floor, so if you fall it was bouncy. It was like, and it was covered. It's like a massive kind of marquee thing. It was pretty good. That just got like knocked down and then like turned into housing, and then cut and then cut and then cut until we're in this sort of tiny little strip of concrete, and just like trying to run a skate session there for like, you know, we're capable of dealing with 20 kids at a time, and you know there's like another sort of 50 that are watching and like wanting to go and like want to rob, like, you know, to like take the pads or like take a skateboard or whatever is obviously more fun than just like not you know, not doing so. Very understandable. But it makes for a very challenging environment in which to teach skateboarding and do anything that resembles quality youth work, you know, anything that resembles like a good quality service that you're providing. So in that way, just like those 6 hours a week that we were doing, there's more than, I guess, yeah, I don't know, 6 sessions in some.
When you think about traveling, like the traveling there and then like setting everything, it's probably more than 6 hours.
Sure, for sure. It ends up, yeah, they're like, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was many hours. All of that, your energy is just so in it. Like you have to give every single little ounce of your energy to it, and you're witnessing kids with their like, and witnessing the effects of trauma on these young people, and it's just exhausting. Like I found it very tiring, and yeah, I did kind of, I had my sort of burnout moment, particularly bad, like, what was that, like 2019? Yeah, like 2019, like, I like left the projects for about a year. Yeah, just like, I don't know, it was just exhausting basically. And yeah, everyone else kind of held it and kept it going. And then I came back just before like the start of 2020, and I got 2 months before coronavirus happened. So like, yeah, kind of a weird time. But yeah, like, yeah, it had a pretty significant toll on me mentally. That's all I can say. Yeah.
So I have two questions. One of them is, from all the different things that you could have done to help refugees, why skateboarding? And when you like you're doing your sessions, do you guys ever get the family involved as well, or is it just like specific for the children? Like how does it work?
Sure. So yeah, why skateboarding? I would say that generally there's a real lack of like youth provision for young refugees. There's just not a lot of like nice fun activities. There's some people doing sports, but you know, only they can only there really is nowhere near enough. There's some people doing some great work, but yeah, with the capacity of their projects, same as ours, there's another, yeah, there's many thousands more young people here that need that kind of thing. And also like mainstream sports aren't for everybody. It wasn't for me. Like I didn't really like enjoy team sports very much as a young person. I got on with skateboarding a lot more, especially when I was sort of more in my teenage years. Didn't want to be shouted at by someone else's dad at 7 a.m. or like 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning in the cold in my thoughts. It's like, don't need it. Don't need it. And skateboarding was nothing like that. So I was like, skateboarding's better. That's what made me stick to it. But yeah, like why else skateboarding? I guess like I think there's something about it that like you kind of see replicated across the world. I'm sure your project has seen this, of like it quite inherently just creates community. Like I think there's something in that activity that just like makes people share space in a really interesting way when it's like at its best. When you manage in the wonderful like kind of circumstances where you manage to like take it away from the kind of traditional boys club, a bit over competitive and like that kind of stuff, skateboarding. If you just have like nice sessions with like different groups of people, maybe some different abilities, you can witness like the glorious thing of like you trying your trick and really caring about your trick, while someone parallel to you is trying their trick, perhaps with a very different ability. And you can care loads about your thing and you can care loads about their thing, and you know, vice versa, they feel the same towards you. And I just think something about that non-verbal communication really beautifully just like brings people together. And yeah, when you apply that to like, you know, a place like Athens, which has got this huge displaced community, and has got, you know, a real need for, you know, this huge displaced community, as well as all these like this big Roma community and all these other disadvantaged young people that live here, like this is going to stay. You know, these problems are going to be here for decades to come. Like this city is going to, whether like it's a pretty conservative traditional country in many ways, and kicking and screaming whether it wants to or not is going to be pulled into like a you know, like to become quite a diverse place over the next decades. And this, I believe there is an absolute need for a project like ours that uses that community building thing in skateboarding to yeah, to go and make it like diverse and create those connections between people, like, because they're, you know, these people are going to interact, and that can either be positive and be through glorious shared community, nice building, skateboarding-y kind of stuff, or it can be through scary and aggressive far-right aggression, which we witness, and we have like you know, we've had that affect our sessions as well in pretty horrific ways, unfortunately. And what was your other question?
If the families are involved.
So,
For sure. Like you know, there's no age limit on our session, so we do get like, you know, I've had people's mums getting the pads on a few times. That's a very nice thing when it happens. We've also had like, I think that's another sort of thing of it, of just like there is the parents on the sidelines and just trying to like get like, you know, just the same as parents witnessing any other kind of after school activity you can imagine. Like they will eventually, if they're watching for 2 hours, like they will eventually just start talking to each other, and that community building thing can happen in that generation as well, which is a really nice thing to witness.
It's also, I feel like it's very special for children to have their parents witness their successes, you know? I know, like, for me as a kid, that was like something I really struggled with because my parents worked a lot. I was always like, if I played sports, I was like, man, my parents aren't here to see me win or lose, you know? Like, I wish they were here to see me do anything, you know? And I can see how that would become like a very important moment where it's like, oh, my parents here and they can see me do this, you know, and they can like see me succeed or see me fall, you know, and I think that's really important. I'm curious to know, like, before you had really started this project, like, had you read much about trauma? Did you know much about it? Were you just like, this is what we need and I'm just gonna go for it?
Not enough, pretty naive really. Like I don't know, yeah, like I read a book, a book.
Hey, that's most people.
Yeah. There's a book called The Body Keeps the
Body
Score.
Keeps the Score. That's on our, it's one of our like reference books. Like
I read that book last year and it was fascinating.
It did a lot for me, you know. It did a lot for me.
I think out of all, if you were gonna read one book, that's a good one to read about trauma.
Yeah, it's very good.
I've done like trainings and stuff since I've been here, but like that's the only like I'm not like I'm not book smart, you know. Well, I did like uni and stuff. Like I've got a degree and all that stuff, and I can obviously like finish a book, but like I don't read loads if I'm completely honest. Yeah, I don't know.
To be book smart, I think you know, like with trauma is having that sensitivity to just being a human being and understanding that everybody comes in with their own
like with this huge history
happening, and you know, like you everybody in their own way, they're trying their best, even though sometimes to the other person may feel the complete opposite.
Or even talking right about like this idea that you see this kind of aggression or these behaviors that you might not understand, but like putting it into perspective, it's coming, like everything comes from somewhere, you know, like all that behavior is coming from thoughts, from feelings, from experiences, you know, like I think trauma is very unique in that way where there's no, you could read all the books about it, but if you don't go and are talking to people and seeing how that affects people's behavior, you're not really going to know much about it, you know, like, or even when you confront your own, when you confront your own trauma, you know, because the reality is like we, you know, as we've done like all this research and, you know, like we've prepared for the project, we've learned that at least like, for example, in the United States, by the time that you're about 30, about 50% of United States citizens will have experienced some traumatic event. Whoa. Which is like, that's huge. That's half of the people in the world who have either known someone who died or
and
were
that's the thing, right? Like I feel like we have an idea of trauma as being like you have to have gone to war,
the worst,
and
it has to have been the worst thing,
right? And the reality is like it doesn't happen like that. Like that is a type of trauma, but even just moving from one place to another, it qualifies as a traumatic experience, or just like, you know, like your grandparent passes away, that could be traumatizing for you. And so I think so often we disregard all of these things that happen to us as like, oh, that's just life, and it is just life, but we don't give it the attention it needs, and we don't even allow ourselves to process that or grieve or really anything.
Yeah, because the reality is like a trauma really by definition is just anything that changes your life, right? That could be anything. That could be literally anything, you know, like, so of course it's like when you really look at it in the grand scheme of things, almost everybody by the time they die will have experienced at least one trauma,
right?
You know, like that's just a reality. Even you talking about, right, like this, you had this burnout, you had to leave, that is, you know, worth looking back on and thinking like what experiences during that were potentially traumatizing, like where was I really, really like changed from that? Because I'm sure you've been changed by working with all these kids and
Right.
seeing all these things. You can't be the same person, right?
And
Like,
I think that's where it comes in that, like, I'm sure it's so difficult in your position to witness children, some, like a group of people who it feels so like not fair, that it's kind of like, as an adult, not that anything with trauma I say is
it's never
fair,
fair, yeah.
but it's like with children, it's like you just at least hope that they have like a childhood that they can look back on and be like, wow, that was like amazing.
And your project could give
right,
them that.
right. And your project, that I'm sure, like you were saying, at times you find groups of people who just are so not stimulated for such long periods of time, and for you it may be just another event, but what you were saying, that for them it could be like the one thing that they've been looking forward to for a while, and
Yeah.
so it's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a undersung thing of like, refugee crisis, of just like chronic boredom is like a massive part of it. Like people are just super bored. Like they've just got a seriously long time in, waiting on their asylum things to go through, where they're not allowed to work and they're not allowed to,
Right, do
you know,
anything.
like very, very little things, and they're kept outside of the city in this way, and it's awful. Then it goes on just forever. Rubbish.
And for children, that becomes a bigger issue because their brains are developing and they're still like
Right.
that. They need stimulation to develop healthily. Which is, I was actually going to ask you if you like looked into at all. I feel like I read something. I'm trying to remember. I don't know. Like I've looked into a lot of like how skateboarding affects like neuroscience, right? Like how it actually affects like your brain. And with children, it's amazing. Like it's like, and I feel like in the next 10, 20 years, we're going to start seeing research that continues to back up this idea that like skateboarding in particular affects the brain in incredible ways. Like you're constantly fighting anxiety and fear. You're learning to regulate your
Emotions.
you're learning to regulate your emotions while also helping other people regulate their emotions, like
And it's like you allow yourself to be in very vulnerable positions, because there the chances of falling are 100%.
yeah, pretty much.
And so like it's confronting those fears that, again, if you are someone who is dealing with trauma in a severe way, every time that your body goes under fight or flight, it's just like a lot, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I think skateboarding, it's kind of like, you go on that ramp and you're trying to drop in and you're just like, should I do this?
You're like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know the work of like Joel Pippers? And
Yes, that's what. Yeah, and yeah, he works like, actually I think we reached out to him to talk to him, to have one of these little conversations with him, and I don't remember if it was him. I think it was him. There was like a neuroscientist that we were also looking into talking to, because this is very real, and I think in the next 20 years it's going to be a huge surge of research about it,
Right.
which is going to be very exciting for a project like yours and like ours, where we're getting that confirmation of what we already know, which is
that's right. Yeah, like a sort of big body of more like neuroscience-y literature on it.
Where people can get a better, where people are like, okay, it's not just talking the talk, like it's very real. Because I feel like some people are like, skateboard, right?
Yeah,
like,
we're not making excuses just to go skate.
Yeah, basically.
Totally.
Which is funny, like I think it's interesting that like you started, like you skate, which is why you kind of were like, okay, this is going to help other people. But I don't even know if at the time you realized how.
Well, I guess a question for you: how do you think skateboarding has helped you emotionally and in your life, like as a whole?
I want to know specifically, like during that year that you were not in free movement, did skating feel different to you, more important to you? Like how did that affect you too?
Okay. so when I was growing up, skateboarding was I mean, as a teenager especially, I think it's a real like identity thing and kind of finding your group of people. It certainly gave me a lot of experiences that other people from my school probably wouldn't have had, you know, just like traveling a little bit outside of my hometown, which is, it's called St Albans. It's like a little suburban sort of commuter town to London. Very comfortable, very nice, little like, very lucky to grow up there, little like middle class bubble. And in that way, I don't really think I had like a great diversity of experiences had it not been for skateboarding, which made me go and meet people from different backgrounds and kind of, you know, have that community building thing that we've already spoken about. Like I really felt that at a young age. And I also think that kind of those experiences also probably ultimately led me somewhat towards having this kind of, yeah, a bit of an awareness of like different social issues and maybe being a bit generally on the, you know, left of the political spectrum, because I'd seen some other stuff and I didn't quite have the vocabulary for that sort of thing at that age, but that's what that was. Yes, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so that's what I guess that stuff did a lot for me growing up, like having a bit of a community through skateboarding. Yeah, like I was also never particularly good at it, and I'm still not really. I enjoy it, but like you know, I've never been like, yeah, I don't know, I've never been particularly brave.
I'm like I have fun. I'm not gonna compete, but like I'm gonna have fun.
This is it. Yeah, so I was also behind the camera a lot of the time. I was filming a lot as a teenager, as well as, yeah, like skating myself, but I also just really enjoyed like, yeah, filming and the kind of that creative element of it too. And then, yeah, like during that year that I went to Barcelona and, right, so yeah, so the year
so that year you went to Barcelona that year?
Yeah, I went to the UK for a while that year that I had off from free movement, and then I worked as an English teacher in Barcelona for like 6-7 months or something, which was cool. Like it was kind of interesting to like, I don't know, like it's weird for me doing a job I just didn't care about. Like it's just like kind of like I don't really mind if like, you know, the middle management of this like international yogurt drink company learn English or not just doesn't really like change anything. So like I don't really feel very motivated to like try in that job. It's like quite a change to how I feel in free movement. But yeah, so with skateboarding there, like yeah, I mean it's Barcelona. It's like I live around the corner from Macba. I like skated a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was incredible to like be at those like really iconic spots. But also kind of strangely, like maybe not the narrative you're expecting. I was kind of a little bit like, I've had a lot of skateboarding in the last couple of years, and I just sort of did a bit of other stuff, which I don't think any skateboarder has ever gone to Barcelona and thought, maybe I'll just do a bit of other stuff. So I don't know, like a bit of music, bit of arty stuff. Like
the reason I asked is because I was curious, like when skating becomes tied to these huge feelings, and I'm sure it, you know, made you like you had left for a reason, right? Like, or you took a break, yeah, for a reason that I can imagine. Maybe you're like, I don't really want to skate right now all the time when I was doing that all the time before.
I mean, and also like, you know, again, it's Barcelona. It's like the your sort of feeling of like teenage skateboarding inadequacy, because I did have a bit of that. Like you sort of paint it as this absolutely perfect activity. There is also kind of all the stuff of like, you like suck at skating like I did. It's kind of like if you skate like spot to have like literally the best skateboarders in the world at it. Like can't always be bothered to go and skate Macba because just like you're probably in the way of like someone who's like
there's an Olympian over there, and like
you're just apologizing. I'm sorry. Let
me get out of your way. Like
you.
I don't know. So like I skated a bit, but I would say the more interesting thing, at least in my perspective, is like that year I got into like lino cut printing. Like
yes, I studied printmaking in school.
I got very much discouraged from art in school, and like secondary school when I was like, I don't know, 12 or something, because
Oh, really?
Told my teacher that, and they're all like, "Oh,
like you're hopeless."
heard that from they just said they'd heard that from a bunch of kids already, and they were just like, "Of course you're not." And then
but you were.
Stop lying to us.
What? I've never heard a kid say that they're colorblind to get out of doing art.
Yeah, for sure. I was just like, cool, if it's like that, cool, I'm just not gonna try then. Like, no, like I'm not doing anything in your class. So yeah, that's what happened. And it was until I don't know how old I was the year I was like, I don't know, 26 or something, 26 or 27 or something, that I then decided maybe I'll have another go at this. And I only like black and white things because like just like black and white. Then you can't like have your art teacher say anything.
That's so funny because I feel like I had that experience with like physical activities. Like I was very clumsy. So all my coaches and stuff were like, just give up. Like, and I was like, okay, then I won't do anything physical. Like, it's fine then. And so I just did art. And then as an adult, now I've started skating. And I'm like, man, fuck those teachers. Like, I can do stuff. Like, it's hard, but I can do it. Like, but that's really, really great that you were able to kind of get into that. Have you continued at all, like in like with the art like stuff?
Yeah. I mean, basically, one thing to say is that at that point, I just got, especially at the point before I moved to Barcelona, in the time when I was in the UK, I just like was at my parents' house and just like every day for like I don't know, like at least 6 weeks every day, trying to like make a piece and like trying to write an article that went with it, and just like trying to work on this bigger project, like the whole thing. I got very, very like obsessive with it, which was like a very nice thing. It was a very, very cathartic thing. Nice Greek word there.
That is a great word, and I don't know more Greek word.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Generally, just like a lot of that. And
have you guys ever thought about like incorporating those kinds of things into like with the skating, also like with the kids, like working with art or working with like some other stuff that they might be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've done quite a lot of creative workshops. It just depends on the capacity of the project at the time and the kind of the nature of the spaces that we're working in. It's not easy to like work it into every single kind of space we work in. Like if there's like, I don't know, we recently done one for our 5th birthday, which was like a couple of weeks ago, and we had massive sheets of paper on the floor and had
I was seeing that. That's why I wanted to ask, because I saw that and I was like, oh, that was so nice. Like, I'm sure kids really love that. Like, I feel like kids just love to like draw on anything huge. Like they want to draw on the walls, but they usually can't. So a big sheet of paper is like close enough.
Yeah, so just like did one side was like a river and the other side was the mountains, and the kids had to like skate through these sort of different environments they made. It's very sweet. And just like there's been plenty of other times we've done that. We've done like grip tape making, designing workshops and like other stuff like that. So and just more generally, like it's been a sort of important change within the way we work within the last year. Like I think it was maybe since November we started working with using our friends at Concrete Jungle Foundation. We're like using their EduSkate curriculum, which is like basically involves building in some kind of, or at least the way that we work with it is to sort of use these sort of like round circle discussion moments at the end, at the start and end of the session, to go and work on, like get the kids kind of thinking about certain values. They might be like around creativity or teamwork, and we try and sort of work towards our goals through that. So if we sort of talk about, I'd say one of the things that the project struggled with for a long time would be to work on social cohesion, even though it's always been one of our core values. It's been like, it's phenomenally difficult. And like, of
course,
especially when at the point that we were working in the refugee camps an awful lot, we were doing important good work and I fundamentally believe in it, but like we weren't doing anything towards social cohesion because it's simply impossible. Those camps are isolated and it's far away from the rest of the
How are
city.
you gonna bring Loa? You're gonna bring everyone else in? Like that's already like it's already a very difficult space. Then you don't want anyone to feel like their space is being invaded. You know, like that's like a huge.
Yeah, I mean, it was just also like on a like practical level, just like you wouldn't be able to bring Greek kids in there and then like on a legal level and like there's
Well, yeah, I mean, what parents gonna be like, yeah, let me just go send my kid to a refugee camp that I don't know where they're going. Like, no, I don't think so.
not a thing, unfortunately. But so that was always kind of our three core values. That was something that I think was kind of lacking. So since we've been working with this like curriculum, like one of the things that we've been able to push a lot more is that social cohesion stuff. But what that means in practical terms is just like doing little like team building exercises kind of stuff, because team building is essentially the same thing as just like have a diverse group of kids in a session, trying to have a great number of like young Greek children, and also there's loads of kids from Albania as well, and like Iran and Syria and Iraq, and I don't know, maybe some places in Africa too, like real diversity of young people, and just have them do nice games together is the stuff that builds community and gets that kind of social cohesive stuff going. So yeah, I feel that's something we've really built on recently, which I'm very pleased with. Yeah.
I want to, before we like wrap up, I'm curious to know, like, so since you came back, how have you worked on avoiding burnout? And how do you see like you and your other kind of, I guess, coworkers, how do you guys work on your mental health while you do these things?
I mean, we are absolutely blessed to have funders that understand these issues, and we have got some allocated budget for counselling, like on a monthly basis.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel very, very lucky for that. I had my session yesterday, and I feel like we spoke about some big things.
I had therapy,
but that's not. Those will be left. that stuff is too much for this conversation, I reckon.
Okay, no, that's next time.
No, yeah, or just for you. Yeah, I also had therapy yesterday. It was a great session.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just trying to build in a culture of like, I mean, we're doing like a lot of one-to-one staff check-ins on a kind of regular enough basis. I think maybe there's room for doing it more regularly. It's quarterly is sort of it's supposed to happen. So just checking how everybody is feeling within work in any kind of capacity that is. Yeah, and like, I don't know, it's something that I would like to build into our work a little bit more consciously, I suppose. I guess we have done with those things I've already mentioned, but it would be cool to kind of have this be part of our weekly meetings, or just have a little mental health check up, like, yeah, see how people are doing. But I also have to say that like since not working in the refugee camps, like that's a pretty significant factor for like feeling better. But like,
and I mean, I'm sure also
there's like a weird power thing going on there with like, I feel better now because I don't have to work in this like really horrible situation, but then there's like how many thousands of people live in that situation.
But in that way, I guess
it's particularly like feel like going on about how much my mental health has improved since not working in that situation. Like, I don't know, it's kind of weird.
But I do wonder if, for example, like, do you see kids who maybe you started at the refugee camp? Do they now attend your other meetings? Like they leave and go attend your meetings?
Like there are those of them that have managed. There's a select few that have got out that have been in the refugee camps for a very long time, are now able to go and live within the city. So I'm just going to have to explain a little thing for you of like why we stopped working there. That's due to a law change that the Greek government sort of slid through during the first wave of the pandemic. This kind of idea of like a big international panic, scary mega thing happens, and everyone's focus is there. What a prime opportunity to go and slip through a shady little nasty law change, limiting the capacity of smaller NGOs to work in that context. So to work in a refugee camp in Greece now, you need to be registered as a Greek organization for 2 years, and then also meet these other kind of legal requirements that will cost us several thousands to get to that standard. And even then you submit your application to a kind of like faceless board of people from the Ministry of Migration, and other organizations have been up to that standard and had their application rejected. So yeah, basically a lot of it, and it's left only the kind of big international NGOs able to work in the camps. So yeah, it's tough. A lot of young people we used to work with, we weren't able to work during the pandemic, and then like we weren't able to get access again. So kind of tried to maintain some access, like tried to do some sessions outside the camps and figure some ways around it. But there's a large number of young people that like we just didn't see again since coronavirus, which is just very, very grim. Like, yeah, I don't know, it's not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why we don't work in the camps no more. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, yeah, that's hard. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think it necessarily has to, like, everyone needs help regardless, whether they're in the camps or not, at least you guys get to help people who aren't. It does suck that the government kind of doesn't aid that like kind of progression, because the reality is it's very counterproductive, right? Obviously everyone would benefit from anyone who's a refugee to kind of be more stimulated. It'll help them integrate better when they get to leave. It'll help them, like be better.
Just everything.
Yeah, just feel better and be better, and but well, we're not in the government, so but it is really great to hear that you guys get to have like your own counseling stuff. I would personally, like, obviously we're not like professionals in any way, but I would definitely recommend like trying to facilitate meditation with with the people who you work with. I think that meditation is really, really helpful, like sincerely. And it's very easy to do, and you don't need anything to do it except for basically 10 minutes of your day. And it makes a huge difference. So I would definitely recommend that. But it's really great that you guys have the ability, even the accessibility, right, to have a counselor, to talk to somebody, like I wouldn't underestimate the importance of that.
Right.
But yeah, it's really great. I love what you guys do. You're really the one of the only other organizations that we see also talking about kind of mental health. It's ridiculously important, I think, especially after COVID, because the number of people who have now been traumatized is much higher, because there was a lot of deaths with that. There was a lot of that social isolation. Anyone who might have been hospitalized, that can also be traumatizing, not to mention the hospital workers, like there is so much more trauma now. Yeah, so it's very important for us to be able to have other people that we know are speaking those things out loud, because that's very powerful. Even to just acknowledge the existence of trauma, the existence of pain, I think that's very powerful and it's very important. So I'm very happy with what you guys do. I'm very excited to see the future of everything you do, and to keep growing and to keep doing everything, all that wonderful work you guys do. It sounds like you and your team are very conscious of everything that you need to do. So that's really great.
Mate, thank you for having me on this. Like, it's an honor, and I'm excited to see what happens with Tutti Frutti as well in the next while.
I've never heard someone say it with a British accent before.
Ignoring all of the T's. All of the